Hi everyone, welcome to the Swan Cup podcast. My name's Alex Wrobel from the Inverell Polocrosse Club, and we're going to endeavour to complete a podcast every week in the lead up to the 2021 Inverell Swan Cup. I'm the president of the Inverell Polocrosse Club, and we're going to use this podcast to provide you with the information about the Swan Cup and meet with the people behind the scenes, as well as competitors, sponsors, vendors, agents, the Australian Stock Horse Society, and anyone else that's involved in the culmination of our amazing event. For our first podcast, I'd like to introduce one of the people who was the inspiration behind the Swan Cup. Cameron Neville, welcome to the first Swan Cup podcast. And Cameron, can you tell me first of all, how did you first become involved in polocrosse? And then tell me how the Swan Cup dream was born.
Yeah, g'day, mate. Happy to be on here and to talk about this Swan Cup, what we're trying to put together. Mate, I first started growing up with horses pretty much my whole life. My mum and dad were into camp drafting, and I went through the pony club programs and the whole deal. And I was lucky enough to live 200 metres down the road from Brett and Tracy Woodward. And when I was about, 14 or 15, Brett was always practicing Trace and Tig. And anyway, I ended up joining in and being a part of it. And lucky enough to play a few carnivals, and I got picked to go down to Narracourt to play in the New South Wales junior side, and went down there and did that. And pretty much I went through to boarding school, sort of stopped playing, and I haven't played probably for 15 or 20 years until last year. And then, COVID bring it all to a stop. So yeah, it was moved back to Inverell, and I live in Glen Innes now on the family farm with my wife Kylie and two little girls. And yes, now I'm back in the area. I'm back playing polocrosse, and as soon as I got home, Brett and Cody Woodward were straight up me to be a part of the club and to make sure I was having a game, doing something. I was too old to play football, so it was time to get on a horse.
Yeah, for sure. And pretty similar sort of story to how I got involved in horses, although my parents weren't that involved. But I went through the pony club sort of situation and seen a fair bit, and my brother and I got involved through polocrosse through a fella you probably know, Scott Welsh, down at Maxville where I grew up, and from there we kept playing, kept being a part of things. My brother doesn't play polocrosse anymore. He's involved in some other horse sports, but very similar sort of journey. Got involved through those people who sort of rally people around them and get everyone playing and having a good time. Can you tell me a bit about how the Swan Cup dream was born?
Well, I worked in Bathurst as a stock and station agent down there, and lucky enough to work with Charlie Marr, and he was inspirational, him and Mark Barton, about starting what's going on right now, the Nutrien Classic competition that's held at Tamworth. And it's set up for camp draft and camp draft only, with the challenge side of it as well. But pretty much is Robbie Block from CL Squires and Company at Inverell. I've known Blocky all my life and been good mates, and he was a bit like me. We were never full-time polocrosse players. We'd always ridden, we'd always done a bit, but we were trying to work out how we can be part of a club and pretty much get a quid out of it at the same time. And Blocky and I were like, oh, well, how about we have a sale and we should do this, and then righto, well, why don't we have a competition with it? And then the ideas just bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it pretty much come down to that we gained a lot of momentum early with a lot of support from a lot of different people from all over the country. And it sort of come out as like, righto, well, if you're going to do it, you've got to go through the processes. So it's like, righto, we go and we speak with our own members at Inverell Polocrosse Club, and if they're happy to do it, then, which they were really good about it. Some of them were sort of like a little bit hesitant, never sort of been done before, which is fine. But anyway, then we go from there. Then we go and have a meeting with the zone, with Chris Burke, who was president of the New England zone. And then we have to put things in place to go to the New South Wales Polocrosse Club, and go from there. And then it goes through the PAA, and we're ticking all the boxes, and then we're like, well, how do we run our sale? How do we run our competition? Which way is the best to do it? How do we make it the event we want it to be? So we started talking to people like Mark Barton from Nutrien, who was like, yep, bang, straight on board. He's like, we don't do this anywhere else. There's no other polocrosse sale about that Nutrien hold. So they were very keen to be a part of it. So then we approached the Stockhorse Society and Barry Moore and Brett Welsh, who we sort of contacted straight up. And they've been, in the background pushing to get the event approved, to have the event, to host the event, to be Australian Stockhorse Society approved. And then Arch Anderson was president of the New South Wales Polocrosse Association at the time, and he was the one who pretty much took it to the board members there and said, well, this is what the Inverell Polocrosse Club would like to do, and jumped a few hurdles and made it happen. And we were lucky enough that things got signed off and went through the PAA, and Angela Grills she was there from the start. She helped me a lot to get it going. And she also was like, right, you need to speak to these people, make sure you're talking to the board members and dotting the I's and crossing the T's so we can get to a point now where we're going to have our event in 2021.
Yeah, nice. Excellent. Thanks for sharing that information. Can you tell me a little bit more about the approved part of the stock with being an Australian stock horse sale? Can you tell me what that means for, say I had a horse, what does that mean for me as a horse owner if I want to sell it? What does it mean that it's a stock horse approved sale?
Well, pretty much the reason we go down the path of just being Australian Stock Horse Society approved sale and nothing else is the fact that it's to give the buyers confidence in what they're buying. So they know when they buy a horse out of the Swan Cup in 2021 and they say it's 5-year-old and they say it's by a certain stallion, and they say it's out of a certain mare, that's what the Australian Stock Horse Society provide us as a partner. And so Alex Wrobel wants to sell a horse in the 2021 Swan Cup. He has to be a financial member of the Australian Stock Horse Society, and the horse that he's going to put in has to be a registered Australian Stock Horse Society in his name to go through our sale.
Yeah. So I have to be a member. My horse has to be a member, registered, and have a registration number, and that way, like you said, you've got proof that that's the breeding of the horse, and that's how old the horse is, and you can go from there, and you can got that guaranteed through the society that that's how it is.
Yeah, so that is the beauty of being with the Australian Stock Horse Society. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, we don't register our horses, we don't do this, we don't do that," but it's just how we get a bit more professional with the sport. It's you see these sales at Dalby, you see these sales at Tamworth, at Kempsey. They're all registered. They're all registered horses. So I don't know why we would want to be any different. We want to lead the way in how it should be done, and horses have to be registered. You have to be a registered member, and that gets you into our sale.
Yeah, and it boosts the profile of our sale too. Yeah.
The Australian Stock Horse Society has a lot of members, and it has exposure to a lot of different people who aren't playing polocrosse as well. Like they've also got their nationals that they have. Most shows have Australian stock horse classes. There's Australian stock horses that are going to pony camp. There's Australian stock horses that are camp drafting. There's all different things. And, it's not just based around the polocrosse wannabe Australian stock horses. We're trying to link the pleasure horse industry, the Australian stock horses, into that so we can just keep growing our game, get new people into it, get new people playing, get families there. And, we want to create an event.
And get some of those old members who used to play, get a few of those back like yourself. You said you had a bit of a hiatus away from the sport, and now you're back. And I saw you there at practice today. We all Inverell Club had a practice, and I could see the smile on your face. You were loving it. It's a great sport, and we want more people to be a part of it.
If you can't have a good time at polocrosse, you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's right. Can you tell me a little bit more about the agents? You mentioned a little bit before, a few people. Can you tell me a little bit more information about that?
Well, with the having a sale, Robbie Block from CL Squires, pretty much it was going to outgrow what he wanted to do, his staff, his business, everything he's got going on. And Blocky said to me straight away, he said, if you're going to run a horse sale, you've got to run it with Nutrien. They have everything. They have everything in place. They have their own equine business. They run sales. They run the biggest sale in the country. They've got a base which would only help us. Everyone knows of Nutrien, which used to be Landmark, the classic, but everyone knows of Nutrien. And, you know, blokes like Mark Barton, Simon Booth, and Joel Fleming have been around those sales for a long time. I know them, and, you know, they were very keen to be a part of it. Mark Witherden, who is the boss of Tamworth, Nutrien and Tamworth, he sat down with us, and, you know, as soon as we gave him the idea about trying to be in an event, well, he was on board straight away as well. So I think if you get the best fellas in their industries all trying to put something together, it can only be a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you talked briefly a little bit earlier about future incentives if you buy a horse out of the sale. Can you go into a little bit more detail with what those incentives are and how that works?
Righto. Well, so the first conversation we had about it was, righto, well, it's easy to go and put a sale on, but how do you get the best blokes playing post polocrosse? How do you get them to come to your carnival? So I know the first year Nutrien ran their first ever classic, they never had an open draft. The difference is with us is that this year in 2021, we're actually going to have an open men's competition. Now it's 7 players, 7 horses, all have to be nominated. And with polocrosse, like, you got to have your points. And we've made that the polocrosse point system is capped. So in the open men's competition, there is a points capped of 56 points for the 7 players, but the highest 6 ranked players can only add up to 48. So it means you can have 7 8-point players if it comes to that. But if you have a couple of 9-point players and you have a couple of 6-point players and you get to 48 is your top 6, well, then your 7th player can't make you go over 48. It might sound a bit complicated, but it's not. Everyone's used to it.
Yeah, sort of.
Now with that,
stops you having, you know, 5 10-point, you know, 5 9-point players, and then just having a 1-point player as your spare, and, you know, dominating the competition without using your spare player. We want that 7th player to be crucial to your team.
True. So it comes down to animal welfare. So, and we think, well, we hope that we're going to have the best players in the country playing, and they're going to be playing over a 4-day period. So them horses are going to need a spell. They're going to need a break. And I think the team who has the most even points through their team, and their 7th player isn't just a passenger, he's getting played just as much as the number 1 player. Well, I think those teams will probably come out on top. So back to the incentive, what we've got.
Sorry, just one quick question there, Cameron. Why is it an open men's competition? Can you go into some more information about that for me?
Yeah. Well, originally it come down to Inverell Polocrosse Club. We didn't own our fields at the time, and to host an event like this, we thought we'd have to do it properly, and we're going to host it at the Inverell Showgrounds in July, and there purely is only enough room for 1 field. Now with that, there's only enough room for 1 field. There's stables there, there's a complex there, there's bar and facilities there that is as good as anywhere, and we wanted to run a professional show. So when it come down to just having the men's competition and not having women included in the open competition, just for the first year, and I'm not saying it's going to be like this going forward, I expect within a couple of years there will be a women's competition going alongside the Swan Cup. But to start with, we're going to have, we need to be able to play our competition and get through our games on 1 field over a 4-day period without having too many sides. And some of the top men in the country were hesitant about playing some of the women. and I know it happens on a regular basis on a weekend. You get Lucy Grills playing and the Hafer girls playing in the A grade every weekend. But we just thought first year round, open men's competition, it's black and white. That's just how it's going to be. But it does not stop them from being a part of the Swan Cup if they come and buy a horse.
Yeah. So in the future, if they come and buy a horse competing in the Swan Cup in 2022, in that incentive polocrosse, and it's open to anybody.
Yeah. So 2021, we're going to run our open men's competition, and then alongside it, we're going to have our first sale. That's how it'll run. So anyone who would like to play in 2022 in the Swan Cup, which is the horses that are purchased out of the sale, out of that Australian stock horse sale, they will be eligible to come back and play in a team, which is called the Swan Cup competition, which is the horses purchased out of the sale. That you can be, as long as you're over 18, you can come back and play, male or female, play in your team of the horses you've purchased out of the Swan Cup.
Yeah, excellent. And bouncing back to the question where we were leading there a moment ago, can you talk about, or actually before then, can you talk about with the open men's competition, can you tell me about the prize money that's up for grabs with that?
Righto. So to nominate a side in our competition, it costs you $700, $100 a player, and that'll nominate your side to come in our competition. Now those teams are riding for $17,500 worth of prize money, which will just be cash on the day. So pretty much it means the winners of the competition will receive $2,000 each player. So there's $14,000 there. Then you go into the runner-up will receive $500 each player there, totaling $17,500. Cost them $100 to go in it, and they're riding for $2,000.
Excellent. So hopefully some top class polocrosse. They've got people there competing for $2,000. Could pay for their trip to Inverell, plus take home some spare cash.
Well, mate, the beauty of it is that I think someone from Western Australia could turn up and play in an open men's competition. He could bring two horses and sell them. He could win the open men's competition. He can sell two of his horses and average $10,000 and drive home and have a real good week.
Yeah, pay for his costs, have a great time. All right. Can you tell me about the future incentives for 2022? So, for example, I buy a horse in the 2021 sale. What have I got on offer if I buy that horse?
Right, mate. So the 2021 sale that is held, anyone who purchases a horse out of the 2021 sale at the Swan Cup is eligible to play that horse in 2022 in what we're going to call the Swan Cup competition. Now, there's a couple of ways to go about it. If your horse is under the age of 5 years, you have up until they turn 5 before you choose to play those horses or horse. If your horse is over 5-year-old, it has to come back within the following 2 years to play in the Swan Cup competition. So you buy a horse that is 7-year-old out of the sale. That horse is able to come back in 2022 and 2023. He gets 2 years at it. And then he plays in a team of other purchased horses out of the sale. Now, they're playing for the same prize money as what that open men would be playing for. And there is no nomination fee to play in the Swan Cup.
Yep. So they just enter, they organise themselves a team of people who have bought a horse, and they enter into that team. With the men's competition, you talked about a points cap. Is the points cap different for the Swan Cup competition with the incentives?
Yeah, definitely. So by having our open men's competitions capped at the 56 points, that's to keep the standard of polocrosse as high as we can get it, and have as many teams there as we think can compete at a high enough level. That when it comes to the Swan Cup, the points there is for 6 players and the 6 horses is 36 points. So for those average players who come every weekend who are buying and selling horses, that's 6 points. So if you have six point players, that's your team of 36. So pretty much meaning that the open men can't turn up with their same team, buy 6 horses and think they're going to win the Swan Cup. They're just not going to fit in. So we're trying to cater for every player at every level, at every stage of polocrosse. If you're a 2-point player and you want to go and play with Jimmy Grills, well, he's a 10-point player and you're a 2-point player. If you can put your team together and have him in it, well, best of luck to you.
Excellent. All right. So we've talked about the sale. We've talked about the Stock Horse Society. We've talked about our agents. Do you know anything about any of the competitors that are keen to be a part of this already? Are there any people that you've heard whispers of that are talking about putting teams together, getting a few things happening? Who's interested?
Well, yes, there definitely is. And Cody Woodward, who's our club captain, probably knows more about that than what I do. But I think I could probably name six teams now that are definitely coming, that are interested, that have been that I've been talking to personally, and that have said that they're coming to support the competition and definitely bringing horses. Now in them, I'd say we've got I know of 4 international players that would probably be coming for that. And one of them happens to be from New Zealand, who's very keen to come across, which is Bo Moore. And hopefully we get to talk to Bo in the upcoming weeks about what his thoughts are on the Swan Cup and how he heard about it and different things. But I'm reasonably confident that you'll probably see Jimmy Grills there, Abbott Grills there, Will Weston there. And then I would recommend that you'd probably see most of the open men's competitions between New South Wales and Queensland. I really think you'd see most of them men and some South Australian players. So we're talking the highest of calibre of polocrosse. And the beauty about it is that they're picking their own teams and they're playing with their own mates and they're going to go at each other for a few dollars. And, you know, it's going to give a chance for someone like myself, if I wanted to put a team in, to go up and play against Will Weston. Never met the person in my life. Watched him play at the World Cup, watched him win a World Cup, and would love to go out and have a game against him and just see where you're at.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's one of those things when you're looking at those averages for those teams. You know, when you look at the points, and you got someone like Will Weston who's probably on 9 or 10 points, being a World Cup player, and yourself, I'm not sure what your points are, probably around 6 points. It creates that good average of 8 points for across those 2 players, and makes a pretty handy side. You get those big players and the fellas who are keen and probably coming back into the sport like yourself and keen to win a few dollars, and I'm pretty sure you put those dollars in there, people start playing a fair bit harder.
Well, I was lucky enough to have a yarn with Mark Palmer, and he's played at Nationals with Brett Woodward, and he went and played in Western Australia, and he breeds quality horses, and he's a fella that's been out of the game. It just may entice him back into it. But what I think it does, it makes a person like myself think, well, I might win the open men's competition, but if I buy a horse, I'm a big chance of being competitive at 36 points in my side, if I can get 6 blokes like myself. And that's just where I think it just makes it interesting, where people are going to pick and choose who they're playing with and how they go about it, because you don't necessarily have to buy the horse yourself either. The beauty about it is that if your mum and dad turn up and buy a horse, they can say, right, Alex can ride it, or they can say, no, we're going to give it to Abbott Grills. So they can choose. The person who buys the horse can nominate the player to come back in 2022. So that's also another aspect of it. Like if you get someone in Queensland, you might get a Les Fraser or someone like that, might come and buy a horse, and he goes, no, right, I'm going to give this horse to such and such, and I'm going to give that one to such and such. It means that at all ages and at all levels, everyone can be a part of it. You can own a horse and be watching it go, or you can be owner operator. You can be buying one yourself and playing it, or you can be breeding horses to sell. Like we've seen the success of Barragoon with what they're doing down there, and their incentive looked to me like it worked, and they ran a draft alongside it. And I know we tried to take a team down there. We just didn't have enough horsepower to go. But it doesn't mean we can't try and buy a Barragoon horse out of the Swan Cup sale. Who knows?
That's right. You might get two chops at the cherry. Then you can have a go at our incentive, and then have a go at their one down there.
Well, I think that's what the point they're trying to get across is if you're riding a horse with their brand on it, you're definitely welcome down there.
Yeah, for sure. Now we've got a few. So early on, right at the beginning, you talked about having to get approval from the PAA and having to get their approval so that we can run our event. And one of those steps was negotiating with the National Umpiring Committee on our specific set of rules. And you talked about the points cap for those teams. Are there any other, and you've talked about 7 players, 7 horses, are there any other rules in there that are slightly different to a regular tournament? If we just came to the Inverell Polocrosse Club Carnival, what's different with the Open Men's competition?
Well, Simon Brennan has been a part of this decision making as it's gone on, and we were lucky enough to. So we've got Simon Brennan, he's the zone chief umpire. Then we lead on to Charlie Grills, who's the state umpire. Then we lead on to Kent Wells, who's the national umpire. And I haven't been talking to them all at one time, but I know Simon's been talking to them a lot about it. And when it came down to how they wanted it to play out and how they wanted it to go, it really is, it's the PAA rule book, and how we play polocrosse is how we play polocrosse. The only little changes that we have is the point system on how we were going to cap it and how we thought we were going to make it fair. And then their few questions were to us about having this 7th player and 7 horses, making sure it was going to get used and not just the 6 horses getting worked all weekend for an animal welfare part of it. So what I know will happen is if they're playing on the main field there at Inverell Showground and a horse loses a bandage, well, that 7th player has to be ready to go on, and he's going to go on ready. You can go on, you can change your positions around in your section, but that 7th player is going on the field, and that horse with the bandage is coming off the field until another break in play. If there's a breakage in gear, or if there is a horse that might be lame or something's gone on, well, the 7th player will get straight into it. Then if it comes down to the horsepower and horses are knocking up and things like that, we're going to have vets there. We'll have the chief umpires all looking around. We'll just be making sure we can play it the fairest and the hardest we can play it, and make sure that each team gets a fair crack at winning the competition.
And we want those spectators, those people that turn up, looking at the horses, wanting to buy horses. We want them to see the best polocrosse that is on offer, and that's the aim here. So we want it to be quick. We want it to be, no stoppages in play that are slowing it down. We want it to happen really quickly. So thanks for explaining those little things that are happening there. Do you have any?
It will also be live streamed. So we're trying to go out to a much broader audience where they can be flicking on and come on and watch your polocrosse games, just like watching a game of footy. We don't want to be going to an ad every 5 minutes. You're going to watch your game. You're going to see this. You're going to see the goals scored. But I've been involved in camp drafting all my life, and as a spectator sport, it is boring. Unless you're operating or own a horse or a part of it, it comes down to a judge's decision, what he grants, what you should be scored. Polocrosse, it's the clock starts, and if you score a goal or not. And if that's just how it works. When the time's finished, who scored the most goals wins. And, it's just action the whole time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what we're hoping for. That's the type of competition we want to see, that stuff where you're a spectator, you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, goal for goal, you're wondering who's going to win. And even if it comes down to it, those extra time games where it's exciting, the crowd's involved, we've got local people there cheering on teams of people that they've never even met before, never even seen play before, never even seen the game before. And they're all of a sudden they're interested, excited, and cheering on these teams and wanting teams to win. And it would just create a really big spectacle for Inverell itself and a big event. Do you have anything
100%.
else? Do you have anything else you want to talk about or add about our Swan Cup 2021, the 8th to the 11th of July? Anything else you want to tell us about?
I just hope that the polocrosse community get behind it, and if the open men can start putting their teams together, and I hope we get a good roll up, and then anyone who wants to register a horse to the Australian Stock Horse Society, I hope they do that and they get ready to nominate for our sale. I know our nominations will come out shortly. I think Alex will tell you the dates for that. But I just hope that this can be the first step in what could be a massive thing for the polocrosse code.
Exactly. That's what we're aiming for. We're looking for creating an event that is like no other. And people are just turning up. They're buying horses. They're buying a better style of horse, and they're coming back the following year to have a go. And you said those nomination dates there. I've got them here. Our nominations for the sale, for the competition, are going to open and close the same dates. The nominations will open on the 19th of April and they will close on the 10th of May. Okay, so 19th of April they'll open up, closing on the 10th of May. That's when you've got to have your horses nominated for the sale. And if you're in the want to go in the competition, that's when your team's got to be entered. So it's all got to happen then. And so,
mate, and I definitely think if anyone wants to contact myself or yourself about what's going on, if they want any finer details, like, we're more than welcome to answer any calls. And make sure you go onto our Facebook page and look it up and get the rules. And yeah, we're more than happy to be out there and answer any questions anyone's got.
For sure. And I'm sure we'll be at every polocrosse carnival we're at. We'll be available to talk to. We'll hopefully try and get a chance to talk to the commentators on the weekend and have a chat to them so everyone can hear what's going on as well. And, message our Facebook page, find our numbers on there, give us a call, find out what's going on. If you're unsure of something, just ask. I've had, just in the last week, 4 or 5 people just message me personally, people I know, people I've grown up playing against and with, and asking little questions about rules. We're wanting to put a team together. This is what we want to do. What's the little rules? What's the details, so that they can make sure that their team's going to be firing by the time they get to July and ready to go.
If anyone has, who wants to play in the open men's competition who mightn't be linked to a team, if they would like to talk to us, and we can probably help them find a team or different things, going forward. That's all. We're just trying to be as helpful as we can. Exactly.
So thanks everyone for tuning into our first Swan Cup podcast. Like I said, my name's Alex Wrobel. You've spoken to Cameron Neville, and we're both part of the Inverell Polocrosse Club. We're both working really hard to get our 2021 Inverell Swan Cup off the ground, ready to go. And hopefully in the coming weeks, we can talk to some competitors, people behind the scenes. We can talk to some sponsors, some vendors, the agents, the Australian Stock Horse Society, and hopefully we can bring you the best event that we can. So thank you, Cameron, for your time. And I'm sure they'll be seeing yourself and myself again as we interview some other people in the lead up to the Swan Cup. And I'm excited about it all, and I just hope it all goes to plan. Yeah, fingers crossed, everything goes well and truly to plan. I might leave it there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Cameron, and we'll catch you later.